Hello and welcome everybody to this brand new edition of the second episode of the second series. We're 2 for 2, 2.22, lots of twos. How are we doing?
Good, good, good. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. With me is Nitesh, better known on the forums as Zorax. My name is Jake, better known on the forums as How's That. I swear I used to be better at doing the introductions.
You out of practice.
Yeah.
You got bored. You got bored. You want to change it up.
Um, we're sat here. It's still a lockdown universe, but it's kind of cricket is is existing. Is it the
Cricket's
same thing?
thriving.
Is it the same thing? Is cricket just like it used to be in the new normal?
Well, test matches are still the same, and that's what you kind of. I don't know why I expected test match cricket to be different because there's no audience, and there's a biosecurity bubble. I don't know what I thought would happen.
Hmm.
I thought it would be like the IPL, where where all logic of normal cricket goes out the window in the IPL. Like crazy shit just happens in the IPL. Associate cricket, crazy shit just happens. I thought it would be something like that. I thought like, oh, we're Test match cricket is going to be this new chaotic. It's just predictable, boring test matches. The same trends happen. Good cricket, one out in the day, good line and length, good bowling, sensible batting. Ben Stokes is still a freak. Jason Holder led well, but doesn't have a team around him that's ready for it. And frankly, the decision to bowl first in the third match was really weird.
Yeah, I think Holder made some pretty questionable decisions a lot during this, but it's probably that they were probably going to not do all that well in England anyway. 2-1 is probably about the result that they would have expected most of the time. So, it's mostly hindsight talking with those decisions, and there's no real
What
guarantee.
happened to trying to draw a game? It's like they didn't try to draw. Like they won the first one.
Yeah.
You think about cricket in the olden days, teams would be like, "Oh, we're 1-0 up. Let's just find a way to bat deep and draw the last two."
I mean, they
And like
can they can do
they
that,
just
but
didn't try. They
well,
didn't try. That was like not the
did,
strategy.
did
They
they not
wanted to.
try, or are they just like
You don't.
they've got a
You don't bowl
completely
first.
incorrect team for that?
You don't bowl first if you're looking for the draw, right?
Well, maybe you do because if you know that like rain is around, which it was for those second two test matches, um, and Jason Holder's principal concern with his team is that the top order can't handle Anderson and Broad, which
Mm-hmm.
proved to be very much correct.
Mm-hmm.
Although Jimmy Anderson actually had a pretty quiet series, then it makes sense to bowl first, try and like take some wickets, try and prevent England's top order from giving this side a platform, which is again you're reasonably likely to do because it happened in the first test. Um, and then not only have the England batting order got to take more and more time out of the game to try and cobble a score together, you've got opportunity to bat without an enormous amount of scoreboard pressure, which means you can take your time, and you are probably going to be batting last, so you've actually got more chance of padding out the game. The difference
No,
is
no.
that when they bowled first those two times, they weren't actually able to take top order wickets, which is ultimately what decided the series. The West Indies pretty much got the same score in all of their test matches, but in the first test, England put up 205 first innings, and the second test, they put up plenty.
I mean, I see your point, but I think you bat first if you're trying to draw a game just because you can. If you're coming into bat
Mm.
after you've been in the field for a day and a half, you're already you're up against it. So if you want only time you want to bat second is if you're sure you're going to be batting early day two, rather than being like, oh, we're going to spend a day and a half in the field, then bat because you're chasing 300, 350 at that point, and
Yeah,
already it's your back's to the wall. So I don't think you ever try to bat second. Want to bat first and hope you see off the new ball essentially.
I
But
think I think it doesn't,
yeah, I don't know
especially.
if it made a difference either way.
Yeah, I don't think batting first or bowling first is really either of them is conductive to drawing. The only thing that really works well when you're trying to draw a series is having a batting lineup that isn't like this West Indies lineup. Not only do you need more experienced, slightly more accomplished players, which obviously is their main fault as a team, but
Mm-hmm.
you need to have players with experience of batting long innings. The West
Mm-hmm.
Indians have Craig Brathwaite, who's kind of came into this series wildly out of form and got a little bit
Mm-hmm.
back again. Actually, hit a couple of good innings. Um, but people like Jermaine Blackwood, Shamar
Mm-hmm.
Brooks, these guys can obviously play a bit, but they've played their best cricket, their best innings, um, on pitches that rag in the West Indies, and basically counter-attacking, and
Yeah.
it's not the kind of like regular facing 100 balls and then trying to face another 100 balls that somebody like, say, Rory Burns has grown up trying to play for Surrey.
True. I
It's
don't
not
think it would make a
there.
big difference either way, because exactly even if they bat first, you need to bat long. If they bat long anyways, it's not quite there. Ball was alright from us in these. Look, I like Rakeem Cornwall. He is a proper good spinner, but
I
he
wasn't
does
too.
leave them with two spinners.
I want to be impressed with Rakeem Cornwall because I want Test cricket to be sort of broad and varied, and I want to kind of be inspired by people who are possibly even like slower around the athletics track than I am. But I don't know. I thought he got considerably outbowled by Roston Chase.
I didn't see the second innings. I only really saw him bowl. I saw everything till the Broad took the game away. And once Broad went crazy, at that point I'm like, okay, this game's done. And then watched a bit of the second innings. The top order couldn't handle Broad and Anderson, and I just tuned out. So from what I saw, Rakeem Cornwall was impressed. I didn't see how he bowled in the second innings.
Yeah, the second innings was a bit of a like a mismatch, because it's one of those ones where, you know, in the third innings you're miles ahead, then you can pretty much do what you want, and the other side are just waiting for you to finish. And and you know, you get one of those cases where nobody's really engaged with the cricket, so they just moan.
Yep.
But yeah, so I wasn't too bothered by that. But in the first innings, when Butler and Pope were batting very, very well, most of those runs were scored against Chase and Cornwall in tandem, which just didn't work very well.
Yeah.
And against, you know, two attacking right-hand batsmen as well in Butler and Pope. And Cornwall like definitely looked like the junior partner, in my opinion. Chase had come on in the second test and he'd picked up key wickets. He was all over Rory Burns. Chase, I think, picked up a wicket on that in that third test as well, on the first day. And yeah, I don't know. I didn't see anything particularly special about Cornwall.
So when I say I'm impressed by Cornwall, the thing is he's got the talent, the ability. Spin bowling is a lot about ability and knowing how to use it. It's like watching Blackwood, for example. You can watch him and be impressed by him, but he's not going to score ruthless runs like Rory Burns or Sibley did. I'm not particularly impressed watching Burns and Sibley in terms of talent. You just appreciate their intelligence about how they go about their batting. And the same with Chase. You're impressed by how he goes about his bowling. He's definitely a lot more wily, more clever with the ball. And most cases that just makes him more valuable. But I like what I saw Rakeem Cornwall as a spin bowling option. I think he's a proper good spinner, which is, again, I've not seen that from West Indies for a while. Proper good. Like you had Ishu was proper good. Again, another one who had that talent but just couldn't bowl around it. So yeah, I mean that's why I like what I saw of Rakeem Cornwall, and I hope they persist with him. I think he could be a proper good bowler. But how did he look with the bat? Because I know he can slog a bit, but
It's funny. He looked like, I mean, he didn't play any proper innings. That's obvious. And that part of that is him batting at like 9 or 10, which seems to give bowlers a bit of a. It seems to affect, like, if they're right down in the order and they know that the one guy to come in next is just Shannon Gabriel or whoever, then it seems to make them think that there's no responsibility.
So weak. I hate people who think that. You have the most responsibility. You are literally the last resort.
Yeah. So he didn't even try and play a proper innings. He did play a couple of good shots, but I'm not going to judge him for what he was trying to do in his batting. He reminded me a little bit of, I guess, probably someone like. I'm trying to think of a good example. Probably somebody like
almost uglier Jayasuriya.
Wow, that would be a bit of a compliment. No, I think I have opinions on Jayasuriya. But no, I was going to say no one that good.
Poor man's Gale.
I was going to say somebody who has really nice shots but doesn't play properly. Like maybe even an early Stuart Broad.
That's what I'm thinking as well. Jayasuriya and Gale had some really nice shots. Just like a poor man version of them. Like, is this technique Gale-esque?
Yeah, I kind of get that. Gale, I tend to think of like more and more of my mind has been sort of infected by 2020 Gale, where he just clears the front leg and blasts it out of the stadium.
Good.
And Jay Zarir, I will always associate with that sort of like swashbuckling flick over the slips, where he just sort of
Exactly.
the bat just comes up in this arc, and you have no idea why the ball always goes to third man, but it's funny, and Jay Zarir then giggles.
So I'm saying, so just was Kim Koma more like flat batted smashing, or was he like carving it everywhere?
He had the he was he was playing drives, he was playing proper cricket shots, just didn't try and play proper innings. Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, but like Broad.
Yeah.
Broad didn't try to play proper innings, and he got 60.
Yeah, well, Broad doesn't. Broad has changed, and I quite like the fact that he's just slogging now because it makes a bit more sense for him.
He fully confessed to it. He's like, piece of batting advice he got from someone. I forgot who, but they basically advised him. He saw someone playing. He's like, I want to do that. I'm just going to plant my front foot down, slog, and see what happens then.
Yeah, I don't know if it was Peter Moores, I think he mentioned. And I don't know what Peter Moores does now, but yeah, I think he name checked him. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah. Someone advised him. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Painful to watch. I thought West Indies came back really well after that first day. I thought, oh, here's a chance now. They got a bunch of wickets in a clutch.
We were commentating on it, and you could see a proper, not just a proper performance with the ball where they added it, but it felt like a proper attack. With Gabe Roach at one end being sort of accurate, and he's very different from the bowler he used to be, but he can put pressure on, and he can move the ball a little bit. Sometimes he goes for a dry spell, as we saw earlier on in the series, but he's a genuine bowler. And then Shannon Gabriel, who like bowls hot and bowls hostile, and they were really being effective, and then it just completely fell apart. In that second hour where Broad was hitting them around, you could look at like the beehive where they show all of the balls position when it reaches the batsman, and almost none of them were on the stumps. I'm not one of these guys who says, why aren't they bowling more Yorkers every time it goes wrong, because that's just the first thing some people like to say. But it was clear, like, if Stuart Broad is outside leg stump and just swinging at everything, why would you bother bowling short with like the square fielders out? What does it make a difference? So I can't believe it was a plan to bowl the way they did to Stuart Broad. That just doesn't make any sense. They just lost their plot.
Yep, happens. Sometimes again, it's the ego of the bowler coming in when you get hit for a few boundaries. It's kind of like, you should probably pull back and tighten up and you start it in or bowl full. Pull to one side, but then you're just like, I can't believe he's hitting me. He's not going to do it again. He can't possibly pull it off again. I dare you to try. and they do, and they pull it off, and you just walk back feeling like humiliated.
Yeah,
that probably there.
But overall, like, I don't know if I were the West Indies, I wouldn't be disappointed in their bowling. It won them a Test match in the first Test. They definitely had periods where they were on top with the ball, even in like the first day where England put up 300 odd for 250 for 4, I think they were at the end of the day. That was a pretty even day, and they definitely won the first 2 sessions. They've definitely got enough there to make it happen. It's just it's just what everybody thought going into the series. They need proper experienced batsmen who score Test match hundreds before they can win series.
They just need more time. The talent is there in this team. It's the only way a batsman learns how to play a long innings is to play a long innings, and you're going to be playing out your entirety of your developing years in the West Indies Test team. How are you going to get the chance to play a long innings?
Yeah, one thing that is true is that in recent series, their domestic cricket has been less stupid. Like, we're not getting the days where finger spinners can go through a season with a bowling average of like 10, which is what we were getting a few years ago. And guys like, and when we're not getting people in like drafted into like open the batting in ODIs when they've got no hundreds, because they just kind of look like they might score one if they could get out of domestic cricket, which is where we were about 5 years ago. That's not really true in the most recent couple of seasons, so hopefully things have started to improve in there, and they'll get players who are a bit more useful and experienced. They will make changes. I don't think we'll see any more of John Campbell. Probably Shai Hope is going to be put on ice as well.
Sad, but Shai Hope.
But if they get Darren Bravo back, that'll be a bit of a start. And they just.
Why is Darren Bravo not on tour? Is he afraid of the virus, or did he get dropped?
Yeah, he pulled out of the tour. He has been on and off for a while, so it's not like they've got this
Yeah.
world-class batsman that could have turned the series around for them. But he's a much more accomplished player than some of the guys we saw in that top order, so he
Yep.
will make a positive difference. Shimron Hetmeyer also pulled out of the tour. And funnily enough, I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise for them because Blackwood came in for Hetmeyer, and Blackwood actually did pretty well.
Blackwood did well. Chase did very well. I'm very impressed by Chase. Chase is
He
should
he
be in the
didn't really he
second or
hasn't really
third name
scored
on the
many
team sheet.
runs against England, but he seems to just become a bowler against us, and it's rather curious. It's something to do with
His
the number of
batting,
left-handers we have, and something to do with
I think so.
the fact that he's being sort of given a position of some responsibility after
Mhm.
this quite good pace attack sort of has a little break, or you've got
Mhm.
someone like Shannon Gabriel starting to get a bit of pace up, or Alzari Joseph starting to get a bit of movement at one end, and Chase kind of gets a bit of benefit from that. But I don't know why it happens against England.
I think he showed a little bit with the bat as well. It's just about, again, he needs more time in the middle. He's already quite old though. He's 30, 31. He's limited in his repertoire, but
I think he's a little bit younger than that. I remember
we
being
looked this up, didn't we?
surprised. I remember being surprised by how young he was
He's
because
28.
I just something
He's
like that.
28.
See,
He's
I've just
28.
googled Chase, and that doesn't work because that's a word.
Austin Chase
Yeah,
age
he's
is
28.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We keep
28.
being surprised by the fact that he's not like 35.
Yeah.
Because he just seems like that
he
kind of cricketer. He seems like a Paul Collingwood
yes,
come again.
yes. And so he's a good player. I mean, he should be on the team. He should be a regular moving forward for them.
Hmm.
They've got some guys to. Well, I mean, Greg Brathwaite on some form towards the end, I guess. But um, who else have they got in the batting lineup? Who's a lock? Blackwood will stay in. Dowridge, Holder are in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dowrich had a real hard time, and by the third
yeah,
test,
he's a
he
good
was just
player.
getting like hit in the face and just clearly
Uh,
wanted to go home so very much.
he's a good player. He'll come back from this. Mm.
So, like, is there anybody in the England side who kind of impressed you or like surprised you? I think this was
Mhm.
pretty much what we've got from England for a while. Probably the big change for me is that they scored most of their runs with the top three, or really just the
Mhm.
openers. Um, we didn't have in England at home in the last few years has generally been get to about 100 for five or like
Yeah.
80 for three, and then either Root or Stokes or often Bairstow
Yep.
manages to dig us out of it, or they just go to like 80 for six, and then Sam Curran gets England to a reasonable total. Um, that's kind of been the story of their batting at home for a while,
Mhm.
and then Anderson and Broad just uh, have been carrying the entire team. This series was a
Mhm.
little bit different because England had some good opening partnerships, which they haven't had at home for quite a while. And Anderson was a bit quiet, like I said. That said, by the time it got to the third test, it was totally normal, and it was just Wokes and Broad pitching the ball up, moving it away a little bit, and it's almost nothing that the touring batsman can do.
That's what
Um,
I'm saying. I don't know what I expected going into the season. I thought we had some crazy new times in cricket. It'll be chaos. No Anderson, no Broad, the changing of the pace attack,
mhm,
all this excitement, and it's by the end of it, it's just, oh yeah, this is predictable. This is what we expect.
yeah,
There's no surprise here.
but
Test cricket is still Test cricket.
it does feel a little bit positive to have what looks like a working opening pair. To be fair, it
It's
wouldn't
a
be the
game.
first time that an England opener in the last 10 years has flattered the deceive a little bit if that happens, and I'm half expecting us to go to go to India with a totally new batsman who has never played before, as opposed to actually having had a bit of experience.
Mhm.
But we'll see.
England does not give the opening batsman long ropes, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
It's
Something with Shai Hope, big disappointment, but appreciate the giving him a long rope because there is something there to work with. But yeah, perhaps it's time for him to be dropped, and maybe he'll complain about it. Who knows?
Oh yeah, speaking of which, in the first test, in this whole series, England haven't played any of their fast bowlers for more than two games out of three. So
Hmm.
Anderson and Archer played the first and third test. Wood played the first test only. Wokes and Broad played the second two tests. Sam Curran played the
Hmm.
second test only. Archer played the first and third. So
Yep.
yeah, they seem to be very keen to rotate their fast bowlers and sort of look after them. And actually, this was a bit of a criticism of the West Indies because they made no changes to their pace attack. And Shannon
Yeah.
Gabriel, despite actually keeping his pace up pretty well, looked absolutely exhausted in quite a lot of the
Yeah.
cricket in the second half of the series with 3 test matches in 3 weeks.
Hmm.
Um, but Broad did a press conference, not press conference, that sounds like he like commanded a whole like rebellious press conference of his own. No, he went to what they've had to put in as the little diary room in the biosecure
Yep.
environment in
Yep.
at Southampton and whinged about being dropped for the first test, saying he was, angry and gutted and
Yep.
all of this. And, you know, pretty much proved himself correct because he is part of England's best attack and has been for a while.
Hmm.
I was interested in quite a lot of England fans after the third test saying that Stuart Broad should never have been dropped and that was ridiculous, but half the time when England are playing away, especially, the prevailing opinion seems to be to drop Broad for whoever's taking wickets at the moment. I think it's always been incorrect, but there we are. Do you think Broad should have been moaning? It seems like he didn't really get what they were doing.
Did he not understand he was being rested, or did they actually convey to him like, you have been dropped on merit? These are our best three. You will have a chance later on to come back in. I don't know how they sold it to him, but it sounded like they sold it to him that he's not in the best three, which is wrong. He clearly is. So
It is a
yeah.
bit weird. It would have made a lot more sense if they'd conveyed to him and that what it seemed to me like they were doing, which is that we've got 6 fast bowlers. They're all going to stay in the squad throughout the entire series. We're going to play 3 of them, and it's going to be different in every test match. That seemed
Mhm.
like an outright plan, but it might have been that they said to him what you said, which is we're going to play our best attack in the first game, which
Yep.
they definitely didn't do.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, he is fine to be outraged. Whether or not he should complain about it really depends on how his contract is written. So
I don't think complaining really seems to do a lot. People like to write about it, but it seems like the majority of times when somebody has been taken out of a team for non-cricketing reasons, um, or been left behind for non-cricketing reasons, probably very rarely to do with what they say in the media, and much more to do with like what the situation is like inside the camp, of which we have no idea most of the time.
Mhm.
But
And I
we
think
do.
also can't expect someone like Stuart Broad, if you see his social media and stuff, he's generally he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not one of those guys who has a rehearsed answer for every question presented to him. He will tell you what he thinks and he'll say what he feels and he'll crack a joke. And all the England cricketers have started to become a bit more comfortable in the media that way recent times. So I think it just might just be that he just genuinely felt upset and just said it. It wasn't malicious in intent. It was just honesty, you know.
It's certainly a bit more positive for those of us who wish to record cricket podcasts that go on for an hour, compared to what we got like 10 years ago when Strauss was captain, where they were all media coached just dead bat everything.
That was terrible. That was a terrible time. I'm like, this is why no one watches cricket because you guys are boring. No one. What do you think people watch UFC? What are the most watched videos that are not fights? It's the interviews. It's the press conferences. It's where the fighters like talk shit to each other. And I'm not gonna let cricketers talk shit to each other. Come on, come on. You
Yeah,
can just be honest.
it
Come
would be
on.
a bit
Well,
more fun. I'll be honest.
be a lot.
I don't really like the culture around combat sports where they sort of where they make the schedule up according to what they think is going to sell most tickets. I think that's really strange
How's
to
that
me.
any different to cricket? And they're almost putting Pakistan, India in the same group.
You're right. You are right. But at least we have a sort of veneer of fair competition around it.
They have
Um,
some veneer in fighting. They have titles
yeah.
and
Anyway,
rankings.
anyway, nonetheless we decided we were going to talk about cricketers that have been dropped and then whinged about it. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know how easy you found this to research. I found it much easier to find batsmen than bowlers. Uh,
I found a few bowlers, but it's really difficult.
yeah, because I think bowlers are kind of used to being rotated a little bit, either for fitness or because of conditions, and that's kind of an accepted part of selection. Whereas dropping
Yes.
a batsman because he doesn't go well on a certain kind of pitch seems more like taboo, and so they kind of whinge about it a
It
little.
feels like more of a personal insult. Batsmen can't take it. The egos are so soft.
Hmm.
If you dare tell them this are bad in a certain set of conditions, they get offended. Whereas bowlers just kind of suck it up.
Yeah, and I think of the batsmen that I found, probably only one of these, maybe two, actually two of these that I found have a legitimate complaint. So we'll start there with the two that I think are quite reasonably aggrieved.
Okay.
And there's my openers, which are Simon Katich and Michael Carberry.
Yeah. I think both fair to be aggrieved. I mean, Simon Cat. Actually, Simon Katich might have less of a case, but Carberry is a good case.
In 2011, when Australia had that horrific Ashes series where they lost by
Mm-hmm.
they lost 3 matches at home by an innings, which is really
Mm-hmm.
unprecedented for Australia. For us, we lose like all the time. It's fine. But yeah, for Australia, that was a big deal. So they had like a whole report into it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that they came to was they decided that they were going to have less 35-year-olds in the team.
Yep.
And of those 35-year-olds, they had Kattich, Ponting, and Hussey. Hussey had been in pretty poor form for a while before the Ashes series, but then had hit lots of runs
Mm-hmm.
in it, so he was fine. Ricky Ponting is Ricky Ponting. He's going to do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so Kattich just, as a result of this sort of new kind of regulation that we have to have less 35-year-olds in the team, Kattich was being dropped, even though pretty much the one thing that had consistently worked about Australia's batting was they had a solid opening partnership between Kattich and Watson. So
Mm-hmm.
instead, Kattich was dropped. They brought in, I think, Phil Hughes, who didn't stick with as an opener. They just dropped down the order after a while. So yeah, and he gave a press conference where he didn't have his contract renewed, so he knew the writing was on the wall, and he said that got me steaming, which is a quite nice Australian way of avoiding swearing.
Yep.
I think he was pretty hard done to. I don't know why there's a thing that
Okay.
says old players you have to be sort of preemptive with dropping them.
If I may, I think the old player theory is a veneer. Didn't he try to strangle Michael Clark?
Maybe.
Fully try to choke Michael Clark
Yeah,
at
but
some
that was
point. He put his
years
hand on his
ago.
throat.
That was
Yeah,
that was years ago,
as
and
long
then he
as that's
became a
on
good
your
player
record,
after that.
as long as that's on your record, I'm always going to look for a way to get you out of the camp.
I don't really have anything against people who want to strangle Michael Clark.
Well, Michael Clark was still a working part of that team, and so like you had to if you had to let someone go, you couldn't have both of them in the same room. It was always going to be Kattich.
Well, he was made captain at that time. After
Yeah.
that Ashes series, Ponting stepped down as captain, and
There you
Clark
go.
was made captain, and so presumably had a hand in getting rid
Yeah,
of the guy who
exactly.
tried to strangle him. I see
There you go.
your point.
So it's that's what got him dropped. So I think he's done easy by.
Okay.
I think the fact there's no lawsuits or anything, I think he got away, he got off lightly.
Fair
So
enough.
I don't think Kattich has any right to be aggrieved.
Okay.
But Carberry's a fair case.
Yeah, he went to Australia. The team got battered. Loads of people were kicked out of the team for good, as we'll get onto, or retired early, or just had their role in the team completely break down. And so they basically reshaped the entire thing, a bit like England did in 2015 with the ODI team. After the World Cup, they just kind of threw everything out and then completely restarted. And that's what they tried to do after that 2013-14 Ashes series. And Carberry was just kind of caught up in that as not really being seen as good enough. Sam Robson was brought in, who didn't last, and it kind of started this carnival wagon of England openers that lasted for one series each. So Carberry probably should have stuck around for a while, and he did complain about it years afterwards. So I think it's probably fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. I know you want to restart from scratch, but it's not like there were better options domestically than Carberry at the time. Like significantly better. Justify the dropping. And it's not like he was a weakling.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere around that time, he'd scored a triple hundred for Hampshire, and a 300 in county cricket is very rare because they have 4-day games, and they have to deal with batting against Tyflex balls in April. So yeah.
So Okay,
Um,
that's a good two pick. Let me see if I've got a number 3. I've got a wicketkeeper,
okay.
Brad Haddin.
See, you mentioned this, and I don't remember it, so please enlighten me.
Okay, so he had a go at the selectors, but rather it's not one of those things where you go, "Oh snap! I can't believe he said that."
Hmm.
It's one of those things where he went, "Oh," because what happened was recently he criticized Rod Marsh, Rod Marsh's handling of his axing during the 2015 campaign,
Okay.
and he said the thing was the comments that Marsh made in the media at the time were the things that hurt the most. He likened the incident of Marsh speaking to the press about his dropping
Hmm.
as receiving a knife to the heart.
Oh.
I know. Uh, so because basically, look at Haddon's point of view.
Hmm.
Australian wicketkeeper Rod Marsh, legend. He's grown up. Even says Rod Marsh was the man at the academy when he was a teenager. Yeah, Rod had known him for 2 decades since he was a teenager at the academy. So he knew Haddon as a person. He knew him well. He knew him closely. Then he becomes chairman of the selectors. Haddon asks him, "Hey, should I retire? What's happening with my career?" Because I think it was Peter Neville was coming into the team that time as well,
Yeah.
and so he was he's trying to find out, should I stay? Should I go? What's happening in my future? And Rod Marsh snubbed him 2 times for going to the press and announcing it. So if anyone has any right to be upset about how the dropping was handled, I think Brad Haddon. Fair
If
enough.
not the dropping
I felt bad for
itself.
him.
Yeah, if not the
Not the
dropping
dropping it.
itself, because
Yeah.
he was pretty much done at that point.
Yep.
Um, Again, just kind of finding it hard to be sympathetic. Um,
I figured if any story can make Brad Haddon sympathetic, it would be this one.
I think he is the sympathetic party in this specific anecdote. That is
Yep.
as far as I will go.
Yeah. There you go. Close enough. I felt bad for him. I never felt bad for Brad Haddon, but now I did. All
Um,
right.
all right,
That's my
I'll take
keeper.
over middle order. So I've got two players that we can cover quickly who moaned about being dropped from the ODI team. Owais
Mm-hmm.
Shah for England was never really established as an international cricketer, but did have a good run in the ODI team in the
Decent.
2009 Champions Trophy. He was playing pretty well, and England won a couple of group games and made the semi-finals, which at that time was seen as pretty good. Then he
Mm-hmm.
was dropped because it's the ODI team, and you know, unless you're like a really established player, it doesn't really matter very much. Um,
Wow.
and then he had a crack at the selectors about it. Anyway, that's an
Shut up.
example of a batsman
Wow. I can't believe they
having a run.
changed the team before a semi-final. England. What the hell?
No, he didn't get dropped for the semi-final. He got dropped after the Champions Trophy when we'd lost the semi-final to
Oh.
Australia, who went on to win the
Oh.
competition. So the point is, England had played
Oh.
okay-ish in a
Okay.
in an ICC event, which was
Mm-hmm.
relatively rare at that point. And then
Mm-hmm.
after the series, they'd gone with a different team, which is fine because they lost
Mm-hmm.
against Australia in the semi-final.
Okay.
Anyway, but more interesting than that
Oh.
is Younis Khan,
Yes.
who doesn't seem to understand that he's not very good at one-day cricket,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
He doesn't
and
understand.
and threatened to retire from the Test team because they were leaving him out of the one-day team. Younis
I
Khan
vaguely
averages,
remember
I
this.
think at the time it was described. I don't remember what his final records were, but at the time Younis Khan averaged about 52 in Test match cricket and about
Mm-hmm.
30 in one-day cricket, with not a good strike
Yeah.
rate.
Yep.
He actually threatened
I,
to retire from the Test team, and then when he actually did retire from ODI cricket, a very short time later, he said specifically, "I am retiring from the one-day team under my own terms."
wow. That's good.
Yeah.
He's got to claim it back. That's what all players want at the end of the day. They don't want to be told they have to leave. They want to have that pride.
Hmm.
ODI average of 31, strike rate of 75,
Yeah.
265 matches. He had enough games.
Yeah.
Didn't need any more.
It's
These weren't even good numbers for the era.
yeah. It's
Played in the 2000. Yeah.
Pakistan have had pretty decent one-day players that didn't really make it in tests as well. People like, say, Shoaib Malik, for example, was much better
Mm,
in one-day cricket.
yeah.
Even guys like, who just weren't very good altogether, like Imran Farhat, still managed
A
to
decent one.
contribute something to the ODI side. So yeah,
Yep. Yeah. I think Shah, the Freely's ODI stats way better. Take a look at that.
I think Freedy probably, off the top of my head, probably averaged about 25 or 27 or something like that, but obviously was picked for what he could do rather than what he typically did do.
Yeah, he got picked for his bowling.
Well, his
He
bowling
got picked for his bowling.
his bowling was an excuse to still allow him in the team, like from a
Bowling was
logical point of view.
good.
It was
Wow.
something that justified his place, but that's not why people remember Shahid Afridi. All right.
He's a really good bowler. He's a very underrated ODI bowler. I think a lot of people remember him for his batting, but such an underrated bowler. Okay. And I feel these stats are way worse. Okay, so yeah, fair enough. You've got 2 middle order bats. I've got a middle order option 2.
Well, can I nominate the captain of this 11?
Oh, is it Kattich?
No, it's Kevin Pietersen.
I feel that's cheating. I feel that should be like the no Bradman rule because obviously Kevin complains about anything. Well, any given topic, having a moan about it.
Kevin Pietersen conducted like a 3-year-long PR campaign explaining why he's better than Alistair Cook.
I mean, I'm just so used to it. It just doesn't occur to me that how bizarre it was, the whole thing. Just such a part of like the saga between him and the selectors and the coaches, and one by one he's fighting every single player. These clicks,
like he got
playing random tournaments around the world, dyeing his hair more weird ways.
And his relationship with the team, whenever it ended, no matter which team you're talking about, was always so contentious. Like at Nottingham, pretty much before he was a Test match player at Nottinghamshire. We've got stuff like the 2012 series against South Africa, where he was first kicked out for texting the opposition jokes about his own players. And then Alistair Cook, who took over the captaincy, brought him back on. You know, after, and Andrew Strauss absolutely loathes him. He called him the C word on commentary by accident. And so Cook kind of mended the bridges and brought him back into the team. And then 18 months later, he's back out again because he's fallen out with everyone. Kevin really needs to learn that maxim where if everywhere you go smells like crap, look under your shoe.
Yep. Poor Kevin. I mean, okay, he's captain. Again, like I said, he's had a moan on everything, but he can inspire this generation, this team, to go forward.
And
I've got a number.
Yeah. Anyway, carry on.
Sorry.
You're number 6.
I've got a number 6. It's Manoj Tiwary.
Okay.
So he's also a guy who's been okay. So this sums up Manoj Tiwary's career in a nutshell. He was not picked for an ODI tour in Australia. It was a last-minute injury. Didn't have the squad depth, and so then instead of picking someone who's in the squad to replace the injury, they're like, no, we need a batsman. Let's fly Manoj Tiwary out because we didn't pick him, we snubbed him. Let's bring him out here. He flies over, literally off the plane to the airport, wakes up next morning to the ground, faces Brett Lee, opening the batting when he's a middle order batsman, and gets York first ball. And that's it. Go all the way out for that. So that's his career. He's just been completely mishandled, given no real chance. Pulled in on short notice. They ignore his form. When he's scoring runs, he doesn't get picked. When he's not scoring runs, they pick him. You'd almost feel like there's malicious intent out there to sabotage him. And he feels that sometimes. And he complained about how his career was handled and how his short runs getting dropped, blah, blah, blah. He came up with this novel suggestion of team selections should be aired live so that everyone can see which selector is taking which player's name on which grounds. It'll help us assess if the selection is fair or not. There is on an Instagram live chat. He says, normally what happens is when we ask selectors about why we were ignored, tend to blame each other for it. So to make things clear, it is necessary that the selection meeting is telecast live. So basically, this is Tiwary's idea. He's so pissed off this board. He's like, let's just have full transparency. Just put it all out there. Which is not a bad idea. Now, do you think about it? I would watch. I would definitely watch selection meeting.
I think, I mean, I would. We have selection meetings that last for weeks on forum threads, and none of us even have any authority. So yeah, I would watch a selection meeting from the actual board. I'm trying to think of downsides, and I'm sure they exist professionally and legally.
There is no downside.
But yeah, I'm totally down for that.
The only downside is that you cannot it's going to have to be full professionalism. So now that they're on TV and everything's being recorded and transcribed,
Yeah.
they're going to avoid saying, basically, imagine if people actually listen to our podcasts. We
Mhm.
would be getting scrutinized for all the shit we said on it. So it's actually, they're just lucky their meetings are behind closed doors and no one's going to actually hear their attempt to show an understanding of how to pick a team.
I really can't imagine being pulled up for anything I've said on the podcast.
I
Except for
could,
that one
I
time you called me racist.
didn't call you racist. Did I call you racist?
One time. Right.
One time. Someone dig that up, please. Let's just verify that's a real thing or not.
All right. We have so at the moment that's Katich, Carberry, Shah, Khan, Pietersen, Tiwary, and Haddin.
Beautiful.
So bowlers opening the bowling is going to be Stuart Broad because he's the inspiration for this 11. Who have we got opening the bowling alongside him?
I've got two left-arm Indian fast bowlers,
Okay.
Ashish Nehra and Irfan Pathan. So Irfan Pathan is not as interesting a story. He basically came out recently on an Instagram live chat with Suresh Raina and said that once he turned 30, the selectors had given up on him. But I think once he turned 30, he became shit. So that's why the selectors gave up on him.
Well,
He played it off as like they thought I was too old and they didn't give me a fair chance. He went as far as to say that, if they told me within 1 year they would consider me for the national team, I would be ready for it. We're like, no, you wouldn't, Irfan.
Yeah.
Ashish Nehra's story is a lot more fun though.
Okay.
Ashish Nehra's story is that he got selected for T20I series in New Zealand. At the start of the season, I think it was before the first game or something, he said that he would retire from all cricket at the end of that series. Cool. He's announced his retirement. He's going off into the distance.
Okay.
And the chief selector decides he needs to talk to the press for some reason, and he's speaking to the media about something, and he says, "We made it clear when we picked Ashish that we were not looking at him beyond the series. This was a short-term thing. We needed him. Players were injured, and it made it clear to him that we will not consider him beyond the series at the moment. It's good that he took that in the right spirit and decided to therefore retire to make space for the other young fast bowlers who we have coming up."
Okay.
And that obviously pissed off Ashish Nehra, who's like, I don't need their permission to retire. So, yeah, that was spicy.
Nice one. So that completes our team. We've got Simon Kattich, Michael Carberry, Owais Shah, Younis Khan, Kevin Pietersen, captain, Manoj Tiwary, Brad Haddin, Irfan Pathan, useful number 8. I've just realised as I'm reading this out that we've not yet completed the team. Stuart Broad and Ashish Nehra are going to open the bowling. We've still got room for a spinner, and for me that's obviously Shane Warne. Not that he made a huge song and dance about being dropped in the West Indies in 1999 at the time in the media. I wasn't around at the time, so I may be wrong about that. He might have sort of implied it a couple of times. What he has done, though, is conducted a sort of 20-year smear campaign against Steve Waugh.
Oh, yes. And John Bunchanan for a while, right? When did that stop?
Buchanan, I think you say. But
Buchanan,
yes.
sorry. I can't pronounce his name. Buchanan.
Yeah. I think Shane Warne may have had a reasonable point that Buchanan didn't really have to coach that team. But at the same time, there have been really great teams on paper who haven't actually gone ahead and won matches. So I feel like that's just Shane Warne being somewhat overconfident, as well as holding a grudge against people he doesn't like, which I don't think is an enormous stretch.
I think that's a good selection.
And that's our team. I found it a little bit harder than I thought it would. If we'd done this in other sports, I think it would have been a lot easier.
Yeah, cricketers are too. They need to talk more shit. They need to sell these. They need to sell these matches. They need to give us a reason to tune in. Stuart Broad did.
And that completes us in England West Indies for the last 45 minutes. Did you watch England Ireland?
So by the time you messaged me the score, I thought I didn't know it was I knew it was happening. I didn't know it already started.
Yeah.
And you messaged me like, oh, okay. I must have missed a lot. I opened and there were 28 for 5 and 6 overs. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
That was pretty much the end of the game in all reasonable aspect.
Camphor did well. That's
Yeah,
RH. Is he a debutant or was that his?
yeah,
He was an ODI debut as well, right?
yeah. ODI
Yeah.
debut. The last time he played in international colours was when he got Tom Banton out the first time, playing for South Africa under-19s against England under-19s.
Wow.
And then he got him out again yesterday, I should say.
Wow. Another South African. That's what you got to do if you're Ireland, Afghanistan. Start poaching players, man. Start
Well,
poaching quick.
I mean, they've been doing it for years. They've actually got a lot more
Oh yeah,
Ireland-born and raised cricketers than they used to have when they used to field a bowling attack with like
all Australians.
yeah. Well, it would have been Trent Johnson, Andre Botha, and so on, right?
Yeah, that's true. So good to see. There's some fight there. I mean, did you hear of the okay, so there's another YouTube channel I found called Cricket for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reason I found this out is so someone posted this somewhere that these Americans watching cricket for the first ever time saw the 3 test matches and then they saw England versus Ireland. And on the 4th time viewing cricket and after seeing that game and doing a little bit of research, even these guys realize that the issue right now in world cricket is that the lower nations don't get enough support from the ICC. It's that obvious.
That is interesting. There's quite an awful lot of American reacts to on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
This is not that.
I don't know if you spend a bit of time on things like R Sports, where
every cricket clip is like
every cricket thread is exactly the same.
Yep.
And there seems to be this culture on the internet of Americans playing up to ignorance. Yes. And I find it very dishonest. Because there's no way that I can't name any modern baseball players, right? I don't really know anything about baseball, but I'm vaguely aware of the rules and how it works and whether or not something is impressive. I understand that part of that is the fact that America is the world's cultural exporter, but like even stuff like, if I watched a game of like something I know nothing about at all, like some sport from Afghanistan that's never been on TV here, and I knew nothing about it, I wouldn't spend my time like saying, "Whoa, this sport is so confusing." Because, no, it isn't. It's just another game that I don't know the rules for yet. And you can get the gist of what's going on. Anyway, that's a mini rant.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of topics you could rant about Americans on. But those 2 Americans are doing that YouTube channel pretty good. They're actually understanding the game.
If that's so, I am interested in the relationship culturally, so I will. That's something worth looking at. But yeah, I don't really see much
Ireland
look
just
for
need
Ireland.
more support.
Well, anyway.
So on the emerging cricket podcast, Freddie Clocker, he's a former Denmark cricket captain, played a long county career. He's back working cricket in Denmark. He suggested, just in talking, that maybe there was like a joint Europe. Well, he didn't suggest it, or someone suggested, but it came up in the conversation during the podcast that if there was an all-European 11 that could go play in the Irish domestic league, because now these European cricketers can't play county cricket anymore or club cricket. It's getting tighter for them with Brexit around.
Yeah.
And all these European cricketers are anyways not getting overlooked for like franchise T20 tournaments. There's no real franchise T20 scene in Europe outside what's in England, whereas you have like the Caribbean for Americas. You have all these Asian tournaments that Asian associate players can take part in. They're kind of getting locked out. So they suggested let's enter the Irish domestic league because Ireland needs the quality of cricket to go up and we get experience as well. And now that actually might be a possibility. The Irish CEO is behind it. So that could be something that would work.
That's a pretty cool idea on paper. I feel like most teams at the associate affiliate level are kind of moving away from trying to be a domestic team somewhere else. Ireland withdrew because they wanted to be, establish their own credibility as an independent national side. We used to have Afghanistan playing in the Pakistan domestic league before they became a real team. So I feel like cricket's kind of moved away from that as a strategy, but yeah, maybe there's still place for it. One thing that they have done is that these England-Ireland ODIs are the first 3 matches of what I think they're calling the ODI Super League.
Yes, Super League. So
Super?
You know what this is? So So what happens in this is that they're giving points for all these ODIs,
Uh-huh.
and they're trying to create sort of like what the FTP used to be. It's the idea is, oh, if you're all buying into this league,
Hmm.
therefore to earn points, you must play this opponent this many times. So it forces teams to schedule
Yeah.
games against the minnows and give everyone a fair share of games. So Netherlands is in this. Netherlands is a part of this. Actually, Netherlands were supposed to play Pakistan for the first ODIs,
Yeah.
the Super League, if I remember correctly, but that got scrapped because of COVID.
So that's
Now
a
Ireland, England are the
that,
first
that,
ones.
that's a pretty interesting step towards, expanding the game and making things a bit fairer. We've got this competition where
Yes,
everyone plays the same number of games. That almost never happens. And I quite
yes,
like
but
that they decided, if say England Australia play a 5-match series, or which they almost certainly
mm,
will at some stage, um, only the first three count
yep,
towards the Super League, and then the other two you just play for fun. I
yep,
think that's a pretty good idea, pretty smart
yep,
solution.
yep.
They probably should have done it for the Test series thing, because
Yeah.
I only
You think
recently
so,
found out how the point scoring works for that, and it's stupid.
yes. So the thing with the test series here is I can see both arguments because firstly they should all play each other equal number of games and every game should count for equal number of points. That's a sensible league.
Hmm.
What they've done now is they've tried to first lean into commercial interests, but then also be like, they don't. It's essentially the big three saying we don't want to play a 2-match series against Bangladesh, lose one game, and you know it's stuck. But that's what's going to happen to them now. It's like, yeah, they have to give that up in order to be able to play long test series. So
Well, hang on
I
there.
think it's
I, I am not somebody who goes in as a corporate shill, but I think the big three reducing Test series is a bit of a misnomer. Um,
it's it's how it works though. And the idea is that they're already going to play small series against Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, etc. So in order to appease these boards to agree with the concept of like, hey, this is not fair. Why are you getting, why can you play 5 matches? We only play 2 matches, and how come there's not like an equal number of games? They have to be like, well,
okay, so how
there's a
come?
comparative edge, there's a comparative disadvantage to playing a small series because a 2-match series can just be all your points lost in an instance. So
Yeah, that that
you
that
take the risk.
exists, but the reduction of Test series to 2 and 3 Test series is going on much more outside the big money than it is within. There's a
Oh well, yeah, I see your point.
New
Yeah,
Zealand are
yeah,
only hosting 2-match
yeah,
series against South Africa
yeah,
because
yeah,
they feel
yeah.
like
It is.
that's because of the decisions that they've made as a board.
Yeah, yeah. No, I see your point. I mean, it is money thing at the end of the day because those small boards don't have money to pay for those matches.
Hmm.
My point is the reason if you're a small board and you want to have a test championship, you're going to be like, look, we will have to play 3 matches to meet this championship criteria. We can't afford it. Why don't you cut us a better deal and give us some money? So, what they did when they came in, the big three takeover essentially was that before you had a distribution of wealth where all the money made from all ICC events were distributed equally to everybody, then you have separate bilateral series money, which those two boards kept. What the big three essentially did was they take a bigger chunk of the ICC money now as well. So that not only do they have the biggest share of a bilateral revenue because they draw the audience, but now they've also taken a chunk out of the ICC revenue, which has affected all these smaller boards, and which is why you're seeing them so much more reliant on a bilateral series with India and so much more, you know, cutting costs on their own side because they've been essentially forced into this deal, strong-handed into this deal,
Mm.
which is how the ICC currently works. And right now, the T20 World Cup being scrapped, it's going to affect the funding for all the associates. It's not going to affect. It's going to affect everyone's funding, but because associates it gets so little as it is, then you cut that out. There, you know,
Yep,
a lot of associates are going to go bankrupt now. So
yep,
that's what we say. That in
that
order to prevent giving
I,
money, they're just giving them a comparative edge.
yeah, that sucks. I'm honestly kind of annoyed about that. I really like the World T20. I just think it's a good
Hmm.
structure. I think it's a good tournament. I think it's got lots of
Yes.
memorable moments.
Yes.
And I understand that it's easier to say you don't care about the IPL if you're not in India. So I'll say it.
Hmm.
I don't care about the IPL
It's
because it's not
completely
in
fair.
India.
I, I barely care. I barely care about the IPL. I try to care.
What,
I know the guy who was like the marketing director of IPL. I've met him, so I'm like, shit, I should care. It's really hard to care.
the IPL has this weird, like, wanting to be the Premier, the soccer Premier League, the English Premier League
Hmm.
sort of
Hmm.
culture around it, where
Yes.
teams are
NBA.
trying to get this big kind of club fan following where there's like big rivalries and the fans hate each other and like talk shit about each other on social media, and not about the teams, about the other team's fans.
I mean, they do
And
that right now. That's happening in Indian social media.
Yeah,
it
it's
is
happening. It totally worked. Like, it was a masterstroke of marketing. It's just shit.
Yes, exactly. IPL has done a really good job at selling it to the Indian audiences, but I guess we're not the Indian audience, Jake.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm in the audience for football, like the Premier League football that does that, and I don't know, it winds me up.
True.
All right.
Yeah.
So, what if not the IPL, what upcoming series are you actually looking forward to?
You know, Iceland, you know, the associate board that literally did a crowdfunding on Reddit, and Reddit Cricket is a sponsor of an international cricket board. I donated to that, by the way, as well. So I had to get in on that. So Iceland Cricket, we're about to host a televised T10 tournament.
Yeah.
They were about to, you know, they were working with Fan Code and European Cricket Network, the same guys who've been broadcasting all this associate T10 stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They had teams ready, everything ready. And then there was a spike of COVID cases, and their tournament was supposed to start this weekend. It's been scrapped, called off entirely under new government regulations, which is sad. They've just like, I feel for them because that happened in Hong Kong as well. Like, we were all getting excited to watch this tournament coming up, going to get streamed, and we had the first game streamed, was a big hit, and then boom, shut down. So I sympathize with like the Association of Iceland fans.
Is the Iceland cricket team a bunch of English guys who have just sort of turned up over there and tried to get a cricket team going?
So essentially, they started like with like 40 people, a very small group, and yeah, it's all expats from not just European, but like, you know, Southeast Asian. So they've got all the South Asian rather. So they've got all the expats and they're playing cricket. And good thing is they've got quite a few. I think they've got a couple of guys who are Icelandic born and raised, who are part of the system. So it's not fully foreign. They've got locals there, and that's why they've got Icelandic names, everything. They've got Icelandic translations. They've worked very well with the Icelandic government. They've worked well with ICC. They're actually they've shown promise as like, oh, we're going to do this the right way. We're actually going to go grassroots, go to schools, blah blah blah. So let's see how it goes.
So when you eventually leave Hong Kong, or are forced to leave Hong Kong for bad mouthing the Chinese national anthem, are you going to go play for Iceland?
Maybe Iceland will take me. Quite a few associate countries out there.
Do you have to do a residency period to qualify for the Iceland cricket team?
I think I'd have to be a decent cricketer to qualify first. I don't think I'm going to qualify for the Iceland team. But just to be part of the cricket system there, I don't know. I have no idea. Assuming you have to do something. I mean, the ICC rule says you have a residency period. So any team you're playing for, any country, you have to have the residency requirement met. Apart from that, I don't know.
Well, I'm looking forward to England finishing their test summer, which I was overwhelmingly during lockdown. I just wanted to, you know, be able to listen to TMS and follow the Cricinfo scorecard and try and feel like I had something to occupy my meaningless existence, and we've been doing that over the last few weeks, and I'm very grateful. What do you think for Pakistan and England series scoreline? Do you think they'll do okay? Do you think they'll just probably have maybe sometimes where it looks like they're doing well and then fall over against English seam bowling?
That's the thing. I want to hope something crazy happens, especially now it's Pakistan, so like that's like double crazy. But it's just going to be predictable Test cricket. The batting line of Pakistan is decent. They're better now. I really want to see how Babar Azam on tour. I haven't seen the Pakistan squad. I assume Babar Azam is there, right?
Yeah, I think they had some trouble with getting players cleared to come over because of viruses, but they eventually managed to get it through after they sorted it out. I think that was mostly confusion and striking rather than the Pakistan team actually being infected with coronavirus, but it seems to be pretty much ironed out for the most part. I mean, Pakistan can't even like keep track of when their players were born, so
yes, expecting them to have a coronavirus.
You can't expect a huge amount of admin from them.
Yes, exactly. There's the guy tested the picture. Was it Harris Rauf? Harris Rauf tested positive twice, and then now he's tested negative. Like, what? See what happens. They've got some decent batting.
Yeah, Babar Azam is there. as
Yeah.
vice captain. They've been playing a couple of inter-squad games, so they've got a big squad.
Mhm.
Probably the most interesting person to keep an eye on is this new fast bowler who is definitely not 16, called Nasim Shah. Did you
Oh
see him
yeah,
bowl at all?
Nasim Shah. I've, he's he's probably 18. Okay, he's not that much older than 16. He's pretty close.
His kids are more likely to be
Nasim,
16 than him.
wow, he's not that much older than 16. Yeah, he's pretty. He's talented. He's young. Pakistani love a good young talented fast bowler prodigy thing. It's in the culture. Second you find one, it's like an English leg spinner.
Hmm.
They're gonna accelerate his growth. They're gonna throw him in the deep end. Sink or swim. He started well, but it was, to be fair, Bangladesh, and they just get overwhelmed in the face of India and Pakistan. Anyways, it's just because it's been a mental block more than anything. I need to see how he goes in these conditions. I don't know if he'll get picked.
Hmm.
They've got Mohammad Amir. They have Sohail Khan. They both should be playing. Then there's Shaheen Afridi there also. So I do not know if
Mohammed
Nasim
Abbas
Shah.
is definitely going to play.
Abbas, Mohammad Abbas is there as well. Yeah, I mean, if you've got Sohail Khan, Mohammad Abbas, Mohammad Amir, you're not going to play Shaheen Afridi or Nasim Shah.
I mean, Pakistan
It's
might.
Pakistan, so you don't know. It's Pakistan, exactly. You don't know who they're going to drop.
England's
It's a
recent
spinner.
England's recent Test series against Pakistan have just been trying and failing to get Younis Khan out. So I think they've probably got, now that he's not there, even though Babar Azam is an excellent player, I think England are more than likely to take a series 2-1, and it'll be basically the same as the West Indies series. The one time that Pakistan get good runs on the board, they're probably going to win the game. Most of the time they won't.
Yeah, possibly. I don't know. Let's wait and see. I, I want some craziness. I don't want to sit down and like watch boringness. I want to watch some fun cricket, some crazy back and forth stuff.
Yeah.
See what happens.
To answer your question, they're probably just going to play Yasir Shah the whole series as spinner.
That's his husband, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not that good in England.
Such is my understanding. I remember him bowling either very, very well or very badly in the 2016 series with nothing in between. It was 2-2. It
Yeah,
was actually a really entertaining series, but none of the games were close, and it was basically depending on whether or not Yasir Shah took 8 wickets or none for 150.
yeah. Let's see how he goes. Okay, so that's good. It's upcoming. England have playing Ireland tonight, right?
They're playing Ireland in about 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll get. I'll see. I'll watch some of that. See how it
Ireland
goes.
have been pretty liberal about sort of trying to get a few new guys through, and they like
Yeah.
Niall O'Brien, who is really like positive on Sky, was saying that they're coming here with nothing to lose and they're just trying their hand, which is nice. And they obviously it's a big deal for Irish cricket to just get lots of games, get on Sky TV, get themselves
Yes.
in playing the games that people are going to watch. And they're bringing through a few new guys, especially in the batting. So it wasn't really any surprise that they collapsed badly in the first
Yeah.
game. They're probably capable. They've definitely got some decent players in there, but they're moving on from Porterfield and Rankin, who sat out of the first game, and going away from that generation that actually got them into full member and
They
Test
need to.
cricket, and they're trying to
They need
find a
to.
new
They need to.
generation. So why not?
That's the biggest thing in Ireland they've been complaining about is, look, we've got these youngsters coming through, we've got our youth programs, we've got our domestic cricket, but they're not going to be ready for international cricket unless we can get international cricket into them to give us a tougher schedule. And they had the world.
They've got 24 guaranteed ODIs according to the setup.
That's good, and they need that. They need that if they're going to build the test team as well. They need to get guys. They have to get their feet wet in international cricket, and ODIs, for all the flaws, is still a very good introduction ground to international cricket.
Yeah. Funnily enough, speaking of that that system, there's one thing I forgot to mention. There's 13 teams in it. The 12 full members plus Netherlands, who won the sort of, I don't know, Division 1 or whatever you call it. And they're only going to play 8 series of 3 games, which means that they're going to play against 8 different teams. Now, if you're Ireland, definitely 2 of those are going to be against Afghanistan and the Netherlands. And you're probably going to have some games against, say, Pakistan and the middling teams. You're probably not going to play Australia, right? Now, I can see a team like Sri Lanka, who's kind of not as top side, but definitely, more accomplished than the newer ones, ending up playing 8 teams that are better than them and kind of dropping out in a way that's going to be a bit controversial.
Hmm.
Is that?
Cut off for a bit. Look,
We'll see. It's probably not going to be fine, and like the top 7 teams in that competition is going to be what everyone pretty much agrees is the best 7 teams, and it's fine.
So yeah, so
But I can see it going a bit weird because of that.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with the World Test Championship, that you're gonna have Bob such just play amongst themselves, and if they can pull off an upset or two against one of the stronger teams they come up against, and they'll have a greater chance of an upset because they're only playing a 2-match series, then see some funny things happen. But that's the trade-off they make to keep the money series. It's kind of like they've gone one foot each way. They've didn't go all the way of making it competitive, but they've tried to allow the big teams to have their big tournaments to make more money for it. And on the flip side, the smaller teams, well, you have a slightly lighter schedule. You can pull off an upset. Yeah, take this competitive edge. Like, you lose out on earning an income, and that's the situation we're in.
The Test Series Championship, I'm not worried about going a bit weird, because it seems like it's almost certainly going to be India against Australia, unless something very strange happens with New Zealand.
Looks like that. New Zealand, I had high hopes in New Zealand when they were starting, but they just fell apart, didn't they?
Well, no, didn't they beat India?
No, what was the first? It'd been. Oh no, wait, this just started. Never mind. I thought I was considering maybe a series before.
No,
because they fell apart against Australia. They fell apart in another overseas tour.
Falling apart against Australia.
England, they fell apart against England.
Yeah,
they fell apart against England as well, right?
No, they didn't. No, they beat England 1-0 in the most recent series, because England generally don't play well in New Zealand. They did fall apart against Australia, but that's just something they like to do.
Australia part of their series World Test Championship?
I think so. And I don't remember. I don't remember all the things off the top of my head. Anyway, New Zealand is the only side that I can see kind of mixing up India and Australia, smashing people 5-0 at home. So, anyway, cricket continues on with
county cricket.
See the daylight. There's county cricket starting, all of it starting today, and they're happily things like 9 for none off 6 overs, which is fantastic.
I'm watching I've got this Essex versus Kent going on my background now, and it's 44 for 3 in 10.2.
Who's playing there?
Essex and Kent. I think it's hard to see who's batting. It's not very clear who's batting.
What's the coverage like? Is it just one camera, or?
No, it's proper. It's done by NV Play. So they've got a score overlay and multiple cameras, and they've got the BBC radio commentary.
All right, well, you know what? That's pretty good. There was a talk that they might be able to have people in for
on
some
YouTube.
Of the games, but like people in to watch some of the games, in which case I might feel like fancy going down to Edgbaston to, watch Tim Bresnan play for Warwick.
It's on YouTube, live and free.
Weird.
Check it out. Go check it out.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. What do we say at the end of these things? I forget.
Did we cover the topics? AOB. There's an AOB section.
AOB stands for any other business. I don't know why I put that on there.
Any other business? Any other business, Jake? This is like an AGM meeting schedule.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been doing since we last did season 1 of the podcast. I've gone into middle management.
Oh damn! So you're writing agendas and things like that now.
Yeah.
You're not teaching anymore.
No, I am teaching, but I'm going to be a second in department, which means
level up.
I mean, it means I teach 80% of the time, and admin and management 20% of the time.
Very nice, very nice.
It's basically what I used to be doing, except I get paid a bit more.
What's it like trying to teach during COVID?
Shocking. I've really no, not for me. This is not how teaching gets done. Clearly.
Yeah. Tough times, everybody.
Yeah, but it's the summer now, so I don't have to worry about it.
True.
And we'll see you guys shortly. So.
Bye.
Bye.